It is a great day for those who oppose the state, particularly the deep state. I am Roger Stone. I am a veteran of American Republican politics, specifically a veteran of 13 national Republican presidential campaigns, having worked for Presidents Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, George Bush, and of course, Donald Trump. I may be the first person in the United States to urge Donald Trump to seriously pursue the American presidency. And of course, I am an enemy of the status quo and the deep state, who really sought to persecute me, inventing, fabricating crimes on my part in order to try to pressure me into giving false testimony against Donald Trump to try to ensnare him in Russian collusion in his election, which we now know definitively never actually happened. So I'm a victim, but I'm also a survivor. And I'm an enormous fan of your new president. I think Mali is very much like Trump in many ways, in the sense that he's genuine, he's authentic, he is provocative, he is blunt, and I think he understands something President Richard Nixon told me a long time ago, that the only thing worse in politics than being wrong is being boring. And he's never boring. And he understands that you have to entertain the voters in order to get their attention. Then you can sell them on your ideas. But if you're not entertaining them, then they'll look elsewhere. The worst thing is to bore the voters. So his use of symbolism, his use of the chainsaw, his blunt language, his love of costumes, his affinity for rock and roll, and his unabashed commitment to free men, free women, free markets, and to opposing the authoritarian state that threatens to destroy all of our liberties. It's refreshing. And clearly the people of Argentina have reacted very positively. So as I say, it's a great day, both here in the United States and there in Argentina.
Yeah, I'd love to hear your take, especially with your expertise in political campaigns. I know, maybe you don't know, but here in Argentina, we look a lot into what was the Trump rise to power in 2016. Many people say that maybe they're different, they have different political ideas, but I know Milei, and I can tell you that we look a lot for Trump in guidance on how he managed to rise to power from the private sector. As Milei did, he was just an economist working in a private company, and 2 years later, he's president of the country. So that was a great experience. We learned a lot from you and from everyone who was running the 2016 campaign. So I wanted you've given us your opinion, but I wanted to know how you saw the campaign from Javier Milei. Especially, it was a long campaign. First, we had a primary where he got into the first place. Then we went into a general election where he got in second place. It was like a big letdown for many. But then we went to a runoff and we managed to take the first place, actually becoming the candidate with the most votes ever in Argentina history. So I wanted to get your take on the full campaign, on how you saw it from the States.
Well, first of all, I think there are many similarities between Trump and Milei, many similarities. Underlying it, I think, is a populist view of freedom and a deep apprehension of the current government and the globalists who would like us to have one currency and would like to strip away our rights. Like Milei, Trump is larger than life. He is uncontrollable. He's not handled. He's not managed. There's no artifice. He's not a confection. He is what he is. He's exactly what he appears to be. And this also seems to be true in Javier Milei. So I think the voters respond to that authenticity, and they certainly have responded to his message, because the alternative is what you have now. Crushing inflation, rising uncontrollable crime. As you know, Argentina was once one of the 10 wealthiest countries in the world, with a quality of life. They called Buenos Aires the Paris of South America, at a time that Paris was a beautiful city that actually worked. Today, Paris is, pardon me for saying it, a shithole. So it is. I think that the Milei ran a brilliant campaign. One important distinction, of course, between Argentina and the United States, and also Argentina and Brazil. You operate on paper ballots, and all the votes were counted on the night of the election day. We don't have that system, unfortunately. And I'm sorry, you can get banned in the United States for saying this, but I'm just going to say it. The machines are rigged. The machines, the combination of the machines and these mail-in ballots are an open invitation for fraud. They use the machines to figure out how much they lost by. Then they use the paper ballots to make up the margin. I'm sorry, but when multiple states stop the counting in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning, and 300,000 paper ballots pop up from nowhere, it's a pattern of corruption. And now, of course, they try to censor you just for saying that. In Donald Trump's case, they try to prosecute him and put him in prison just for saying that, when it's kind of obviously the blunt truth. So I think, to go back to your question, I think that your new president ran a brilliant campaign in which he never backed off any of his well-stated beliefs, and it worked. And I was confident that he would win when I realized that you were on a paper ballot system. For those in the U.S. press and some leftists in the Argentine press, for the legacy media, first of all, there's nothing more enjoyable than watching the meltdown today of the Washington Post and the New York Times. They really hate it when average people don't do as they're told. They hate it. So they've already begun to disparage Milei as a clown and so on. Now, is he eccentric? Yes. Winston Churchill was eccentric. Abraham Lincoln was eccentric. That's meaningless. It makes him, I think, actually more interesting. And just to be very clear, I played no role in his campaign, neither formal nor informal, nor did I advise him or his campaign on election integrity issues. This is a false narrative that some in the press there and some in the press here have tried to utilize. Because of my background with Trump, they think there's something illicit when there is nothing there. Am I friendly with individuals who worked in his campaign? I am, and I'm proud of it. I think they did a magnificent job.
Yeah, actually, on that point, I wanted to ask you, I know you met Agustin Romo. He's a congressman elected for Javier Milei's party. What was your take on it? I know he's going to laugh when he hears this, but he's a very good friend of mine, and I wanted to know what do you think when you met him?
He's a very, very impressive young man. And I would go so far as to say that I think he himself will be president someday. He has the talent. He has the communications skills. I think he has a great future ahead of him. And what I like about him is that he understands the mechanics of politics, but he also understands the big picture in terms of what the government can and cannot do, what the government must and must not do in order to preserve freedom and to promote security and prosperity for Argentina.
That sounds very good. And also going back to your fraud comments, here in Argentina, it's true that we use paper ballots, but we usually have a lot of, we call it micro fraud. It's especially during the elections. People steal some of the ballots. When people go to vote, they go into the room and they don't find any ballots, and that's an issue we've been having like for 40 years in Argentina. So it's very common here to do something that we call fiscalizar, that basically it's that we send people from our party to oversee in each election center. We put people that have the power to see everything that is going on, go into the room and put ballots when they got empty. So we have a whole system in place that it's very expensive, and if you don't have it, you cannot even go into the election because you know that you're gonna be stolen. So that's a big issue we have in Argentina right now. But it's true that as we don't have any machines, it's more difficult for the other party to try to they don't know how much votes they need, right? So
Right. Correct.
that's something that we saw in Brazil also, right? They have everything electronic, and they basically said, well, we need 1 point here, one point there, and they stole it very easily.
Yeah, I didn't mean to imply that the paper ballot system was perfect or that it was impervious to fraud. The mail-in ballots here are in essence paper ballots, and they have been the subject of enormous fraud. Now I will be banned on Facebook for life because I said that. Oh, wait a minute. I'm already banned for life on Facebook. So I say it without any particular fear. But again, huge credit to the campaign for having the poll watchers in place to ensure that you didn't have that kind of fraud. That takes massive organization, planning, and execution. It is precisely why I say that Milei's party ran a letter perfect campaign.
Also, Milei ran with a third party. This is something very unusual, even in Argentina. I know it's even more unusual in the United States. He ran with a third party. He went against these two parties, the Peronist Party and the Radical Party, which have dominated politics in Argentina for decades. And he's the first president in history that has managed to get the presidency without the explicit support of any of these two parties. Do you see something like that happening in the United States if the rift in the Republican Party continues?
Much more difficult in the United States because ballot access, getting your name on the ballot in the 50 states, is regulated by laws written by Republicans and Democrats working together to make it as difficult, as expensive, as highly technical, and as arcane as possible. And therefore, we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has decided that he's running as an independent. He has not formed a new party. I believe he remains a registered Democrat. He's going to find it extraordinarily difficult to actually get his name on the ballot. Everybody here seems to be jumping ahead to see where he stands in the polls and to see where his votes come from, whether he siphons votes from Biden or whether he siphons votes from Trump. It appears based on most of the polling that half of his voters are voters who wouldn't have voted anyway. And then he takes disproportionately, I think, from Trump. But this assumes a couple things. First of all, it assumes that he will get on the ballot. There's no guarantee of that. And he's got to get on in enough states to theoretically win 270 electoral votes, which he may not be able to do. And then secondarily, there is this kind of stunning belief that he's going to find himself in a three-way debate with Trump and Biden, or Trump and whoever the Democrat ends up being. And I seriously doubt that as well. The Presidential Commission on Debates, which is not appointed by the president, is not a commission, and is most definitely not about broadening debate, which controls the debates, has no interest in any third force, and the actual co-chairs of the Presidential Commission are the chairpersons of the Republican and Democrat Party. So I think it is what you have just done is difficult, but perhaps in Argentina, you don't have the legal structural barriers to the rise of a new or a third party. On the other hand, somewhere right now, Juan Perón is spinning in his grave because Javier Milei just ended 40 years of Peronism.
Yeah, that's a reasonable take. I think there were a lot of Peronists who voted for Milei because they were fed up with it's been 20 years of Peronism being left-wing. That is something that in Argentina we speak a lot about. Peronism is like a catch-all party, and they have right-wing people and left-wing people. But in the last 20 years, it has been dominated fully by the left wing. So I think there were a lot of people who were fed up with that, and they voted for Milei for sure. I wanted.
Yes,
Yeah.
look, nothing could be worse than the continuation of the entrenched socialist political establishment in Argentina. I think Milei's free enterprise-oriented libertarian platform is the best alternative. And I actually think on a personal level that he will not disappoint. One of the phenomena you saw in this country that we now see today happening in Argentina, Vivek Ramaswamy kind of vaulted into national prominence by espousing a America First populist agenda, very much in the mold of Donald Trump. And he's very articulate. He's very energetic. He's very combative. Like Milei, he's very entertaining. He's very audacious. He's very blunt. And people immediately began to look at his background and say, well, he was once associated with the World Economic Forum, and therefore he cannot be trusted. After some consideration and study, I reject that view. I don't think that he is. I don't think that he's going to be the nominee for president. I do think he brings some important issues to the debate. He's been very aggressive in his defense of Donald Trump. I think that he's got a great political future, but people do evolve. They do change. Their views change over time. I've seen some today online begin to criticize Milei's past association with the World Economic Forum. I think this is meaningless. It's like President Bukele in El Salvador. People initially told me that he was not the real deal, that he would not enact the reforms that he enacted. But time told us otherwise, and he's been extraordinarily successful. That country, if it's possible, was actually in worse condition than Argentina today. So I think Milei loves the country that gave him birth. He's a common sense, pro-God economist who supports private property rights, who will defend people from the dangers of communism. He's not just some colorful guy with a chainsaw. He's thoughtful. He is highly intelligent. He's extraordinarily articulate about his vision. He plans on abolishing the central bank and wants to bolster the strength of the peso. Understands that it is best, I think, backed by gold, if that is possible. He's probably doing more to prop up the U.S. dollar than the United States is doing at this moment. So I think that he is. I think he's going to be amazing. And to coin a phrase, I think he's going to make Argentina great again.
That's a phrase that he has repeated during the campaign. Roger, would you consider yourself a libertarian, at least in philosophical terms?
There's no question about it. In fact, in 2012, when the National Republican Party nominated Mitt Romney for president, I was so revolted by him and his lack of belief in anything and his faux conservatism, because he's not a conservative, that I actually bolted the Republican Party. Now, I was the young Republican national chairman from 1977 to 1979. I have a deep sentimental attachment to the party of Lincoln, the party of Eisenhower, the party of Nixon, who was my mentor, the party of Reagan, who I worked for in 3 national presidential campaigns, the party of Senator Bob Dole, our 1996 nominee, was one of the greatest men of the 20th century, would have been a great president, and obviously the party of Donald Trump. So for me to leave the Republican Party was a major step. I had to think long and hard about it. But when I read the Libertarian Party platform, it more closely reflected my own views. I'm a strong believer in individual freedom. I'm a stronger believer in privacy. I'm a strong believer in small government. And when it comes to international affairs, I'm not an isolationist, but I am a non-interventionist. I don't think that we should be going around the globe looking for foreign wars where we have no inherent national interest. So even today in the Middle East, while I, like Malay, am a strong supporter of Israel, I'm also a strong supporter of America first. We are $13 trillion in debt. We give Israel billions of dollars every year as it is. We need to finance the security of our own border. We have 370,000 homeless veterans in this country. They need to have first-rate health care, and they need to have housing. So I just think in terms of the national priorities, it's time to put America and the American people first. I think Malay will put Argentina and the Argentine people first.
Yeah, I think that was very clear from his campaign. Also, a lot of people here in the Milei campaign, they were inspired by a documentary you did called "Get Me Roger Stone." I think it was sponsored by Netflix, right?
It's a pretty down the middle documentary. It's probably what brought me to national prominence. It also probably helped get me targeted by Special Counsel Robert Mueller. That and a book I wrote called The Clintons' War on Women, which is a shocking expose of all the illegal exploits of Bill and Hillary Clinton, who are so crooked they would steal a hot stove. But I am, I'm kind of like Malay. What you see is what you get. Sometimes I get myself in trouble by telling you exactly what I think, but that's kind of at this point the way it is. Look, I admire the fact that Malay wants to swap out the peso for the U.S. dollar, essentially dollarizing your economy. He wants to do away with the peso because the peso has no value, and he now sees that. That's bold thinking, but that's bold thinking that is both good for Argentina as well as being good for the United States.
Yeah, I think that documentary was meant like to maybe like defamate you, right? They wanted to go against you, and I think you managed to spin it in a way that everyone who watched it said, "Oh, I like that person a lot," right? So they wanted to put you as the bad guy, but yeah, I think you came out as the hero of that documentary.
Well, there were certain things in it. Obviously, I would disagree, but I'm not going to highlight them or nitpick. I think, on the whole, it was historically accurate. It got a couple things historically wrong. It is interesting that it was 5 years in the making. The three guys that made it, although I made them a huge amount of money and gave them prominence in their start as filmmakers, they were the first ones to go to Robert Mueller and offer to testify against me, even though they had no evidence of wrongdoing on my part. So I guess I have a love-hate relationship with them. But if you haven't seen the movie Get Me Roger Stone on Netflix, I recommend it to you. You'll look at it, you'll see me today and say, wow, he looks so much better today than he looked then.
Yeah, I can confirm that many people from the campaign of Milei watched that documentary and they were inspired by it. I can assure you that.
I sent Malay my book, Stone's Rules. He received it very warmly. He was very gracious about it. And for anyone who is in politics, I strongly urge you to read it. It has an introduction written by my good friend Tucker Carlson, and we're going to have it. We're going to have it published in Spanish here very shortly. Any person who it doesn't matter what your career is, by the way. It could be politics, or it could be tech, or fashion, or agriculture. It doesn't matter what your chosen profession may be. I think this book can help you because it's just based on the things that I have learned in 45 years in the arena. And I commend it to you. You can go to stonesrulesbook.com and order it. But you can also order it from Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And I think they do international shipping, so it might be more efficient to get it there, actually. But I commend it to you if you are interested in how to survive for 45 years in the toughest business there is, politics. I commend this book to you.
Also, regarding that, I know that you work with Nixon, you work with Reagan, you work with Trump. What are the biggest difference you might get out of that experience between each of them? And also, who of the three do you think was the best president? I know this is like a cliche question, but I had to make it to you.
That's an extraordinarily difficult and unfair question. Let me say this. They were all very different. They're all very great in their own way. Nixon had both a big picture view and was very focused on how he appeared to the public and the public relations of being president. But he also, and this is a downside in a way, he was his own manager. He also was too deeply involved in the mechanics of politics. Now, he didn't take it to the extreme of, say, Jimmy Carter, who actually personally controlled who got to play, the schedule, who got to play on the White House tennis courts, but almost. So Nixon's great downfall in 1960, when he ran against John F. Kennedy, who he very much liked and respected, interestingly enough, because they came to the U.S. House at the same time, and they were both ardent anti-communists. His mistake was trying to be the candidate and also manage his own campaign. You cannot be the candidate and also manage your campaign. Reagan was the exact opposite. He came from the world of entertainment. He was very, very, very focused on the role he played as candidate and as president. And he understood that he had to use that position to inspire people, to encourage people. Interestingly enough, when he was retiring, one of the questions he was asked was, well, do you think that your background as an actor, rather than a professional politician or someone who came from the world of politics and government, hampered your ability to be president? And he said, you know what? I don't think a guy who wasn't an actor could do this job. And I think that's absolutely true. He was an inspiring, bold figure for the American people, but he was completely involved in the technical and strategic side of his campaign. He let others, people like me, handle that. Trump is more like Reagan than he is like Nixon, in the sense that he's a big picture man. He is like Reagan, very focused on how he appears to the public because he wants to inspire. But at the same time, he's very fixed in his views. He knows exactly what he wants to do, and he knows how he wants to appear. As I said earlier, he's not handled or managed or packaged. He's completely genuine. And like Malay, what you see is what you get. The challenges they all faced were similar. The people who removed Nixon in a silent coup because he was threatening to downgrade the power of the Central Intelligence Agency and the military-industrial complex, what today we call the deep state, they removed Nixon in a coup. Nixon had no knowledge of the planned break-in in the Watergate. And today that looks like small potatoes compared to the crimes of Barack Obama. Barack Obama and Joe Biden knowingly used the full authority of the US government in an illegal and illegitimate effort, utilizing fabricated evidence, the Steele dossier, and the alleged hack attack of the Democratic National Committee by the Russians, something else that never actually happened, to weaponize an illegitimate effort to remove a duly elected president. And they knew it. That's the biggest single political scandal in American history. That makes Watergate look like, as we would say, small potatoes. So those same forces that removed Nixon, that sought to remove Reagan in the Iran-Contra scandal, where there was a concerted effort to also remove him from the presidency because he challenged the neocons and those who wanted to expand us into foreign war that was expensive both in terms of money and lives, but where our inherent national interests were not clear, are the same exact forces that tried twice to impeach Donald Trump based on fabricated charges, and now actually seek to put him in prison. And above all, seek to interfere with his amazingly successful, so far, campaign to return to the White House. It is backfiring in a spectacular fashion. People are looking at it to say, well, wait a minute, what is it? What's his crime? Did he steal anything? No, he didn't steal anything. He questioned the outcome of an election. That's what he did. That's his crime, except for that is not a crime. He has a First Amendment free speech right in this country to do that. And for them to say, well, Trump knew he lost, but then he conspired with others to remain in power, that's simply false. Trump never thought he lost, not then, not now. I'm convinced that he could pass a lie detector test, a polygraph test, proving that, although they're not admissible in court. The federal government, particularly the FBI, uses them all the time. And it has to do with his state of mind. I don't know. It doesn't matter how many people, the FBI director, the attorney general, the head of Homeland Security, doesn't matter how many people told Trump that in their opinion he lost. Doesn't matter what they said, only matters what he believed. And the fact that Joe Biden couldn't get 200 people to a rally in a Union Hall in Philadelphia, but 45,000 people were turning out for Trump rallies, it's not credible to believe that Joe Biden not only got 81 million votes, but that he got 20 million more black votes than Barack Obama, a historic figure in this country. Zero chance that that's true. Zero.
And what do you think Reagan did differently? Because of the three presidents that I named, Nixon was impeached, Trump was impeached twice, but Reagan was like impolluted in a way. What do you think that maybe his alliance with Bush Sr. was something that maybe was like a shield from all that? What's your take on that?
No, I think it's important to recognize that Nixon was impeached, but he was never convicted in the Senate. He chose to resign because he likely would have been convicted. It's important to note that we had no internet at the time. So we had a monolithic corporate media that was universally against him. The three major television networks, the two major national newspapers, news magazines at that time, which don't exist today, like Newsweek and Time, were very influential then, and they were universally committed to his destruction. So he had no platform from which to launch a counterattack. He had no platform from which to defend himself. When he held a press conference to say, people deserve to know whether their president is a crook, but I'm not a crook. And I, every penny I have, I got honestly. He was ridiculed by the media. And subsequently, his political position became untenable, and he had no choice but to resign. By the way, he regretted resigning to the day he died. Right. Reagan, I think, escaped, not because of any shielding by the Bushes. In fact, I have said and written in my book, The Bush Crime Family, that I believe George H.W. Bush was behind the assassination attempt against Reagan in 1981. I think I make a pretty good case for it in my book, The Bush Crime Family. Again, in Argentina, you can go to Amazon and get it, or Barnes and Noble. I'm going to write a follow-up to that book because I have found additional documentation to prove that case. And in Trump's case, he was impeached, but again, he was not convicted, and he was not removed from power. He was removed from power when the 2020 election was stolen out from under him, and that remains a controversial issue today, and is going to be one of the pivotal issues in the next presidential election. Because I can tell you this, he's not going to stop talking about it. For those who say, oh, he needs to stop talking about the last election, I don't agree with that. Now, all politics is about the future, but in his case, he's in a particularly strong position because we had the most productive, robust economy in our history under Donald Trump. We had the lowest gasoline prices in recent memory under Donald Trump. We had the lowest rate of inflation under Donald Trump. We had the lowest levels of unemployment among all Americans, Black Americans, white Americans, Hispanics, Asians, young, old, urban, rural, under Donald Trump. We had historic criminal justice reform under Donald Trump, so that the laws put in place by Joe Biden and Bill Clinton that unfairly incarcerated millions of poor Black people for the simple first-time nonviolent crime of possession of small amounts of drugs for personal use was reformed under Donald Trump. Something Democrats whined about for years but never did anything about. Policies are actually put in place by Bill Clinton and Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Joe Biden. We also had no foreign wars started under Donald Trump. We had no aggression against our country by the Russians or the Chinese because they feared Donald Trump and because he was unpredictable. So people look back at that now and they look at the absolute chaos of the Biden administration, and I think they are longing to return to the prosperity and peace that was brought to the country by Trump.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Roger, for this opportunity. Just to close, I wanted to ask you if you or maybe Trump or someone from the Trump campaign is thinking of coming to the Argentina inauguration. Here in Argentina, it's a very common thing to invite other presidents or former presidents to the presidential inauguration. So today Milei announced that Bolsonaro is coming, Bukele is probably coming. So I wanted to ask you or let you know that there's an open invitation for Trump or anyone from his campaign if they want to come. It's in December.
I don't know what the president's thinking on this. I think he'd be honored to be invited. He's, of course, in the middle of his own campaign. Plus, he had all of these harassment trials. So there's a great premium on his time. You see, that's exactly the point of this, which is to drain his time, to drain his resources in terms of the huge amount that he has to pay to lawyers, to distract his attention from the campaign trail. But I'm sure that he will be honored to be invited. In conclusion, let me say, viva la libertad, carajo.
Awesome. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Roger. Thank you so much.
God bless you.